This is the average menu screen in Armored Core, and I would argue it's almost incomprehensible even in English. But you read the title, so you know this is going to be me trying to beat Armored Core 6 completely in Japanese. And this is not only my first time with this game, it's my first time with any Armored Core game. This series is basically a Google spreadsheet doing its best impersonation of a third-person shooter, so being able to read is going to be pretty important. I mean in life in general it is. And if you're wondering why the Italian man with a mustache does not have a mustache anymore, you have to watch my last video. My Japanese knowledge starts with Kono Dioda and ends at Bakashinji, but I did some training before by watching some classic Japanese films without subtitles.
私はスカイラー・ホワイト。夫はウォルター・ホワイトだからよ。
So we take a good look at the controls and we begin playing. And it's kind of weird because random bits of the interface are in English. I mean, it looks fitting with the mech aspect, and some may call it cheating, but this is exactly like a native Japanese speaker would see and play it. It's not like I can force the game to have more Japanese text. The tutorial is the most important part of a game usually, and I can't really understand anything besides the PlayStation controller buttons. So, with some gamer sense, I kind of get how the movement and shooting works. There's a pseudo Estus flask, nothing too crazy, and no shot I'm missing some critical piece of information. Yeah, about that. I then died like 10 times to the introductory tutorial boss fight. At first, I thought there was like a weak spot I was supposed to hit, or maybe I had to make it hit itself with the homing missiles it shoots, but I was actually missing a couple of game mechanics. I didn't know that I could do two sword attacks, but I figured it out during the fight. I didn't know bullets bounce off after a certain distance even if they hit, and it took me a while to figure that one out. And most importantly, I didn't realize the game wants you to use the assault at like all times. I saw it in the tutorial and it looked like a cool dash to me, but that's about it. Whereas you're supposed to be spamming this since it allows to easily dodge bullets and missiles, get close and engage with melee attacks. And that one I never figured out, like for the whole duration of the game. So Armored Core enthusiasts out there, I'm sorry. After enough suffering, the game took pity on me and showed me a little video where they deal absurd amounts of damage with the sword, so I just did that and it was enough to take out the boss. And this is just the tutorial. The game continues the trend of having English words in the menus, and the weirdest one is that in Japanese the missions are called operations, whereas in English they are called sortie, that comes from like French and Latin. But this is not a video about language, it's about blowing up robots, so scared by menus I decided to just hit the mission and stack up some cash. Now, OBJ is obviously objective, TGT is obviously target, and I mean like you don't need a degree in robotics engineering to figure that part out. But I also do have a degree in robotics engineering that is actually not a joke, that's what I studied in university, so maybe it will serve some purpose here. Plus, we even have a briefing that tells us what to do before the mission. It is in Japanese, but there are some cool images to look at sometimes. For now, the missions are pretty easy, so I did a couple of them. Found out there isn't fall damage, but you can fall out of the map, completely missed the point of a couple of tutorials, and progressed with the story. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the story. I obviously didn't understand any of it, and by that I mean that I made my own headcanon so I can take you up to speed. We are taken out of retirement from our planet Alaska 5, where we are used to hang out with our robot dogs. We are sent to the planet Rubicon 3 for a special mission. Our code name is Solid Raven, because it's a stealthy animal, and we are part of a PMC, or private military contractor. We take missions from various corporations on the planet while we fight the government forces here. After ignoring more tutorial messages, we get to the first real Armored Core versus Armored Core fight. And I felt kinda bad because the other guy is called a student pilot, so it didn't really feel fair. But I hope he learns a lot from his mistakes and comes out stronger.
Are you going to commit the same mistake again? That the mistake was like
going to war. Then we have a mission with a couple of buddies, I'm sure they are very cool and fun. We blow up a divine beast from Zelda, and we have to fight a garbage compactor with our dear friend Rusty. I mean, I see everyone losing their mind and doing fancams about how cool is Rusty, how they want to marry him and live happily forever after, so I do have to trust them on that. But he also just flies away halfway through the fight, leaving us on a 1v1. I am sure he had his good reasons, like Aurora Borealis localized entirely within his mech base. The game is definitely getting harder though. I had to do this fight a couple of times while actually sweating to get through it. And the next mission is what I feared would have happened going into the run. There is a 4-minute timer, no objectives clearly tagged on screen, and the game says I have 0 of some resource or whatever I need to find. So let's improvise. I spawned very close to a broken mech, and after analyzing it and getting some dossier in Japanese, the counter goes up to 1, so I assume I have to find more broken mechs and analyze them. Thankfully, after sprinting for a while, I can find a second and third one, but I have 3 minutes left and I get jumped by some people. I just try and ignore them, but after wasting some more time and realizing I can't go anywhere, I do what the game wants me to do from mission 1. That is, mindlessly shoot the robots and assume they are AI driven and there aren't like pilots with families inside. I take them out, nothing happens, and I fall down in the last unexplored area of the mission. Get bot number 4 and 5 in a quick succession, but there's a boss fight, I have a little more than a minute, and the mission still isn't over, so maybe there are some more things I have to do, who knows. The boss is a pushover, she falls down in a handful of seconds, but the timer is still going, I can't analyze her body, and at this point I can only wait for the time to end and hope it's not going to take me 4 hours to complete this. Time runs out, a Japanese guy is talking to me, and apparently mission complete pops up on screen and I managed to get through it. No idea what I was supposed to be doing, but it works and I won't question it. Then I fight some invisible enemies with the game kindly reminding me that there is a scan button, but while doing all these missions there's only one thing in the back of my head. Since this challenge is supposed to be minimal information about the game, I tried to avoid reading spoilers, but there are 2 things I kept reading about it online. The first one is that people love Rusty, we went through that already. And the second one is that the final boss of chapter 1 is a nightmare. Like, people are refunding the game, leaving scathing reviews, in general crying, pissing and shitting about how it's unfair, not fun, and definitely not balanced. And I'm just here, waiting for the roadblock, kind of worried, and every time I fight a tough enemy, I start to think that maybe that's the boss fight, and I'm just better. But I'm not just better though, and I get into the final chapter 1 mission not knowing what's waiting for me. The start of the mission is pretty straightforward. You shoot some mechs, then shoot some more mechs, then shoot a mech with a name on top, and then for the lore aficionados watching this, we have to destroy this huge supercomputer that fabricates news for the population to feed on and give control of the planet to the Patriots. But either we or the mech gets infected with this female voice that talks to us. In Japanese, obviously. And then we have to take out the boss that made everyone mad, and I get why. The boss has a shield, so to damage it we have to first deplete the shield, it takes a while, then it's open to damage for like 20 seconds, then the shield goes back up and we have to do it all over again. I don't need to speak Japanese to realize that my setup doesn't break the shield fast enough. Like, there is a possibility that the handler is telling me to input the Konami code in order to turn off the shields, but I think it's just marginal. So we have to change equipment, and the game is really cool because it allows you to do it on the fly after you die at a checkpoint. But if you need to go back to the shop, like me, you actually have to replay the whole mission from the beginning. And I avoided the shop up to that point because, well, it looks like this. In my mind, shield equals energy, meaning that probably other energy-based weapons should deplete it faster. And you can see most items have an explanation here, that could be either random lore about the guy who built them, or maybe it literally says, yo, use this to break the shield. I have no idea, so it took some iterations to find out a good weapon. Turns out, the one that the enemy right before the boss fight uses is the best one for the job. That was a good call, FromSoft. And we can also sell everything we buy for the same price. So it's really easy to try out new stuff. You just have to redo the mission a couple of times. Kind of annoying, but better than nothing. I also bought a shotgun because it looked cool and is clearly the giant version of an Italian-made one, the Franchi Spas 12, and I felt patriotic at the time. Plus there's a whole energy and weight system, but who cares? Now we have the right setup and all that is left is just gaming. And boy do I
I
game.
ran out of bullets. Now what? Okay, so I don't have any more assault gun bullets. And I died. No! No!
So, it took some tries, and I'll tell you more precisely how I did it since, well, people are struggling with it. Yeah, there is an unlimited amount of those reviews of people losing their mind. This weapon deals mad shield damage, but doesn't have much ammo and is fairly close range, so we just use it to break the shield. When that happens, the enemy is staggered for a while. We can get a free hit in, preferably with a sword, because it deals more damage. Also, it looked like damage on staggered enemies increased in general, but the game probably told me that in Japanese, so I have no idea. Enemies with shields don't have a stagger bar, or rather, it's hidden behind the shield. But if you get a little lucky and can keep up the pressure, you can stagger an enemy twice after a single shield break, and that adds tremendous amounts of damage since you only have to break it once, and that is the bulk of the fight. After half HP, the boss blows up and goes into phase 2, where it uses flamethrowers like melee weapons, one of the coolest and hardest things I've ever seen in a video game. My tip now is just dodge them. I don't know, I usually play Elden Ring, dodging melee attacks doesn't look that hard. Also, if you see a red square, dodge or you will get hit in the face with a rocket. About an hour of tries later, we have a dramatic cutscene where our mecha is watching Oppenheimer, and now the virus that infected us and is called Raven Die is going to talk to us in cutscenes. Then I take out a guy called Invincible, that was definitely Vincible, but I got a cool new sword and a minigun, so maybe that was the reason. Second garbage compactor fight, this one is called Smart Cleaner, and there was definitely something I didn't get about the fight, because it lasted like 20 minutes of me just flying on top of it and shooting lasers into the hole babies have on their head. Then I did a bunch of 1v1 optional missions that give you credits to make your mech better. Too bad this is the menu where you use the credits. It looked important, so I tried to decipher it. System unlock looks a bit too hard for me to understand. Damage control I assumed was you take less damage. That part was pretty easy, since it says like something 3%. That's probably going to be you take 3% less damage. Attack control must be you deal more damage, and these are clearly types of weapons, so I assumed it's going to be you deal more damage with either bullet-based, explosion, or laser weapons. What is left is pretty interesting. It's the core expansion section. That is clearly something I can do with the left stick plus triangle, but one of them had no controls listed, just a bunch of kanji, and costed more than the other ones. There is a cool image explaining it though, and you can clearly read Terminal Armor Emergency System. So I assumed it was an armor that activated at a terminal moment, and I bought it. Also, I had a pimp my mech moment because I was tired of my generic grey whip. Yes, it's EVA 01. No, I'm not a weeb. Yes, I know it's a hard claim to make while playing a mecha game in Japanese. Then we meet a woman that has a pink spider as her icon, so I'm assuming it's Juri from Streets, and she shows us the droids from Star Wars. Not even a joke, those are just the droids from Star Wars. Then, after some mindless slaughter, there's another tough boss, and And it took some adjustments to do it, because at first it looked like fighting from above was correct, but then I figured out that no, it's probably better to stay under it, because even if you can't understand the jack most of the time, you deal a lot more damage. There is another system I was forced to learn here though. Our mech has two lines that, thanks to the symbols close to it, I assumed were weight load and energy capacity. It's pretty easy, meaning I got it without being able to read. You need more energy for more powerful stuff, and you need to be able to carry more load for more heavy stuff, that is usually also more powerful. A third system I got right away is that the more weight you have, the slower you are. And it may not show on camera very well, but I can assure you, I felt like I was walking through molasses and couldn't dodge any attack with this setup. But I am still using it, because when you can't see attacks, it's not like you can dodge them either way. So a tankier build with more HP felt correct. And also I found out I can hover in place with this 4-legged setup. No idea if I could have done it also before, or if the legs allowed me to do it, or the generator does, but it was pretty useful, since this boss takes to the air after 2/3 of HP, and being able to get close and smack it with my melee weapon was what allowed me to take it out without much trouble. Then we shot a package to the other side of the planet with like a railgun, I have no idea what's happening. Then we have to blow up a ship, but I'm starting to get worried. I died a bunch of times in all the last missions I did. The difficulty is definitely spiking up, and I'm wondering when it will stop going up, and is there any main system in the game that I'm still missing? For now, we can get through though, and we are introduced to the Planetary Closure Administration, that I assume want to blow up the whole planet, but who am I to say? Then we have the first 2-on-1 boss fight. Historically, major roadblocks in front of gates.
Well. If it isn't the blowjob brothers.
Turns out that either the fight is very easy or my build is very broken. I can focus one dealing a lot of damage very fast. Yeah, I do lose some HP due to basically not being able to dodge attacks from the other one, but individually they are pretty weak. I was correct about the upgrade I got previously, and now the first time I would die, I instead survived to 1 HP with a couple of seconds of invincibility, and here I get the first of many insanely cool anime kills at literal 1 HP left. Next mission is a stealth one, and the language barrier was kind of a problem here. If we get caught, the mission is over, but that's not that big of a deal since we can just shoot whoever caught us point blank in the face with a shotgun and nobody notices. But at the end there's a boss we have to take out. The fight itself is not a problem, it's not that easy, but it's like really doable. Only that at about half HP it stopped fighting. Now, I got confused for a second and stopped fighting, but I am a man of action and it looked like a free moment to deal damage, so I did. I think by the voice actor's reaction that it might have been some kind of bad choice. Also, it basically stopped shooting me, and after a while it dawned on me. Maybe it is Patches! Oh, I think I killed Patches. I killed Patches. By the way, pretty sure I killed Patches. It happens. I felt kind of bad, but no time to think about our feelings where we have to blow up a whole cave system. I don't think there was a story reason for it, it was just a cool thing to do. That symbol is pretty self-explanatory. We can do either of the two missions, and the other one is locked away forever. I had no real way to understand which is the good choice and which is the bad one, if there even is one, so I did what felt right at the moment, and just chose the one that gave me more money. In hindsight, not the best course of action. We have to fight a guy whose armored core is basically just a hat. Like, look at him, that's him standing, and that is the robot around him. Obviously, you can only damage his body and not the hat. I'm sure everyone playing the game got that in the briefing where they clearly tell you how that works, but I'm a gamer, so I figured it out on my own in like 5 minutes, and 5 minutes later the fight was over. I got lost in a mission where all I had to do was quite literally follow the red lights around the city. It took like 20 minutes. and then I got stuck on the helicopter from the tutorial again, mostly because I kept running out of bullets, and then I had to defend 3 missiles from a frontal attack. Apparently defending just one of them is enough, and we get in one of the cooler missions in the game. First we assault a base, like full frontal, no stealth, no loads refused, we just blow up the place, destroy some ships that come to the defense, and then we have Rusty with us for a boss fight. Now, this is a bold choice by the developers. Not only it's the Blowjob brothers again, we have an ally and they are easier than before, like the heavy one blew up in 8 seconds. But this is not why the mission is cool, it's cool because of this, and they called it before it even appeared on screen.
Is this Dune? Dune Part 2 spoilers? Oh my god, it's actually a worm! Oh! It's actually a Dune worm!
I was so hyped by the Dune worm showing up that I didn't even question why it was showing up. But I think I have to end the bit about me making the story of the game Metal Gear Solid, because I have no idea what to do with the worm. Like, okay, the worm is the boss. Then we have a couple more missions with some presentation slides in Japanese, and I want to gloss over them to get to the worm. But I have to mention, we meet another person that shares our same handle. It's called Raven? But he's like evil, I guess. I'll call him Liquid Raven. Now, the worm. We are given a weapon specifically for this mission, so you know it's a gimmick. And how it's supposed to work is that the worm stays underground and we shoot it in the face with the stun weapon to stop it. How did I get that? For once, the briefing was useful and it clearly says stun needle launcher and points an arrow at the monster's face. If I wasn't paying attention, I don't know how this would have turned out. This isn't the first time From Software has a big worm with electric attacks in a game, it's the second one. So I tried thinking how we had to fight the other worm in Dark Souls 3, but I couldn't remember it, because how I've always done it in that game is by simply standing close to it, and there's this ballista far away that is trying to shoot us, but actually hits the worm and takes it out. And coincidentally, that's also exactly how we fight the worm in this game. A little more intentional maybe, but we fire the stun gun, and a laser ballista from the other side of the planet staggers it, and we beat it up. During the fight, our friends fall, I think. I'm not sure if it's scripted, if they are still alive or whatever else. But we get a cool money shot, so who cares? Plus, the stun needle launcher, the weapon given to us for this gimmick fight, is one of the strongest weapons in the game, and that's kind of unusual. Gimmick weapons tend to suck outside their fight in FromSoft games. Then we have to fall down into a weird vertical compound. Not sure what's happening there, but a laser machine is shooting at me and I definitely brute forced my way through. No shot that you are supposed to fall down tanking hits like that. We fight a guy that I think we knew already. Maybe we are betraying him and this is like the bad path, who knows. And then we have the, I would say, third actually hard fight in the game. I started out with shotgun and melee weapon, and I went through bazookas, miniguns, flamethrowers, more bazookas, and I decided to land on the shotgun with a melee weapon. Definitely the best of them. I figured out that the stun needle is very strong damage-wise. The problem is that the bullet is low and it doesn't track enemies at all. But we can get a free hit every time we stagger or every time we feel cool and we just shoot it in neutral. 9 times out of 10 we get punished and lose half HP. But that 1 time out of 10 we get a free hit in the enemy and a shot of dopamine straight in the arteries. Now, if you've seen enough of my videos, you know what's going to happen. I found a setup that lets me play as insanely aggressive as possible, and I'm going to just do that until I get stopped by a huge robotic wall. Basically, I just play really up close and personal, use melee and shotgun to get a stagger, because after that I have a free stun gun and shotgun hit for a lot of damage, or even sword attack if it's not in cooldown. The problem is that you don't have invincibility frames in this game, so for enemies like these that use melee attacks, you need to actually dash around and fully avoid the swipes, else you just blow up and die. Another crazy 1 HP clutch later and I can proceed. But at this point I'm understanding so little of the story that I'm just a rabid dog. Whatever is destroyable and in my way gets exploded, living, mech or inanimate, including this armored core that is definitely using the Moonlight Sword, and that I have to destroy fast enough before the whole place blows up. Okay, I don't actually know if that's the case, but everything is up in flames and a timer is counting down in a mech game, so I assume everything is going to blow up. Case in point. Another branching path, and I, again, choose the one that gives me more money. Guys, it works for jobs very well, it does not work for missions in video games if you want to have a good ending. The guy I have to kill now was definitely a friend at the beginning of the story, like I think we also shot the worm together, and that's like a bonding moment that you only get once in your life. About that, in the next mission we meet Rusty again. Now, I have no idea what he's saying, but I love the guy.
Why does it look like we are the bad guy in this shot?
We have a pillow fight with him, but not like a violent one, just a hot one you do. I mean, it can be violent, but it also needs to be hot. So I don't know how to explain it, but this is a Yuri game. Lesbians in the comments, sound off if you agree. And if you see the health bar moving around weird, it's just because some enemies in the game can heal themselves a couple of times. Still an easy fight. Rusty just leaves, and we find out there's like a whole city here. But apparently, people already know about it since they are there fighting. You know, like how in Tomb Raider games you find minigun parts in ancient forgotten tombs? This is basically the same thing, but we can shoot the minigun parts, the mechs. Also, the bone wheels from Dark Souls are back. But in this game, you can just fly up, so we just do that. Wait, was that a Moonlight Blade? I got put in a blender here. Also, maybe I'm going insane, but that blender looks an awful lot like Malenia. But first, I want to give myself some credit, because I said this after the very first try, and it was actually true. No need to understand the language to be a real gamer.
The fight does look kinda easy damage-wise, so I think this is probably a phase 2. Or something
And
else.
you know what else is red and you should press? The subscribe button that I guess is grey now that YouTube went the minimalist way. Like, still click it, thanks. The game works with checkpoints. So in boss fights like this, you respawn at the beginning of the fight, and the boss will do the same attacks and maybe even follow-ups if you also do the same things. It's basically scripted, and if you happen to find a good sequence to punish them, well, it happens every time. All that damage is guaranteed if I do the sequence correctly, making phase 1 basically free. And by that I mean that I sometimes die during it, but most likely if I get hit by something weird, I just reset. I found dodging all the little attacks impossible, and dodging the sword swipes very hard. Plus it doesn't help that if they connect, it's half HP gun. But the worst part is that they play aggressively, but very carefully. So you have to dodge a lot, but you basically have no openings where you can dish out a little damage here and there. It's either a big one you have to capitalize on, or nothing. We only need basically 2 of them to get a stagger and go into phase 2 though, so it's not that bad. But obviously there isn't a checkpoint between phases. Now the fight looks like a bullet hell though. There are projectiles covering the screen at all times, and we need to keep some booster fluid to dodge the sword attacks and or big lasers. So avoiding damage is impossible. But remember how I made that joke about 1 out of 10 stun projectiles hitting while the enemy is doing attacks and it being incredibly dangerous but very cool? Well, it's the best strategy I got here. And what's particularly dumb about it is that it's reliant on tanking hits and trading damage. But if I equip tankier and slower pieces for the mech, I just get annihilated because I can't dodge anything anymore. And you could call that a glass cannon, but I think that assumes you deal a lot of damage and just need to dodge well. This is like a glass pair of dice that you are throwing on concrete. It's really frail and you need to be lucky in more than one way. But when I drop to 1 HP, I get some invincibility thanks to my expansion core. So I go for a trade, stagger, and that's GG. You could say I'm built different, but right after that I get shot to death by either a copycat mech or just someone that happens to use the same weapons and also chose to go into battle with the goofy head. There's a cutscene that has literally the same intonation and looks of the ending in Fallout New Vegas, like, no joke.
コーラル水野劇校バスキュラープラン
An independent power in the Mojave, preferring neither the best of the NCR.
But it's not actually the end, and we have to break out of prison with the worst mech I've ever touched. Jury comes to save us, and I'm showing you this because I got spawn killed by the game, and it was downright hilarious. We get back on our mech. How and why would be appropriate questions, since we last saw it being hit by an elephant gun, but I don't know how to ask them in Japanese, so we'll have to go on without thinking about it. And then there are a couple of multiple choice missions in a row. I got here by choosing the one that gave me the most amount of money, and I'm not going to back down now. But let's just say I had to take out a bunch of people during these missions, including Rusty, that at this point feels like a punching bag that is just there to be blown up. And I don't know if the other missions would have been more peaceful, but I don't feel particularly proud of my choices. There is one where we have unlimited booster fuel and we can fly around as we please. That was cool. And in case you wonder why I stopped talking about the story of the game, we ended up in space at some point. I don't know, man, I'm just destroying mechs, hoping that it's the right choice. I feel kind of dumb here, because my main problem with this boss is the most Dark Souls-like mechanic. It does this disengage and then jump in with a sword combo. It's super easy to understand when it's going to happen, but for the life of me I can't properly dodge it. And it hurts twice as much because at this point I should be able to dodge regular telegraphed sword attacks. If I go backwards, I still get hit 9 times out of 10. And if I dodge towards, I usually get stuck on its body and get hit, or I have to guess if it's a right or left swing, since I'm too slow to dodge both. So a normal person here would just go into the assembly, look at the parts they have, or maybe buy, I don't know, boosters that have a longer dash or shorter cooldown between dashes. I mean, assuming that's a thing that changes with boosters. Again, this is my booster menu, in case you forgot. Or maybe the dash length is decided by the generator, like you put more energy in the dash, so you go farther. Regardless, I have no way to figure that out, so I just went lighter with the mech and hoped it was enough. It also took me this long to realize that if the stun needle launcher is broken, I can just use 2 of them with no worries and it's going to be twice as broken. Easy as that. Then it's a matter of trying it out over and over again. And after some time I was able to properly dodge the sword swings. I don't know if it's a matter of speed or weight or technique, but if I just dash to its right, at a certain point in the animation, I avoid damage. A bit of a caveman strat maybe, but it works. Last thing to figure out was the right hand weapon, because the boss has a shield only in the first half of the fight, but I still think the anti-shield one is the best, even if it's useless later, because at least phase 1 is easy. And I don't know, I'll pray some armored god for luck in phase 2 when I get there. Am I missing some core mechanics? Definitely. Dodging all these attacks looks way too finicky, the boss dodges all of my attacks no problem, I don't know if there's a way to reload weapons manually, and there's this group of items in the mech assembly that like, who knows what it's for. I just bought the one that was the most expensive. But at the same time, I deal so much damage that for every shield break I get a clean quarter of HP from the boss. So, like, who cares about game mechanics? Just do this 4 times and it's over. Well, it's more like do it twice, go into phase 2, and then it just becomes a scramble, because you are seeing phase 2 on screen and it's, I would say, not easy to understand. But I gamed with raw instinct up to this point, I can definitely game some more.
Is this it? Oh, it does the way in time! And I just shoot and I'm immune? Yes!
And the next mission we have to... The game's over? That was for sure the good ending. I then looked into it in English and I was wrong about like 90% of the things. Like, who knew that the boosters improved melee damage? Come on.